So I did spend a lot of time going through your file because you've been with us for quite a few years. Um, in the report from APP, it says that you did complete SOTP, you passed 2 polygraphs this parole, um, yet here you are. So APP stated that uh, you had the tools, but you chose not to use them. So um,
That
by
is
not
correct.
by not using those, you were looking at pornography. Uh, whether or not it was child pornography, um, the board's not going to know. So why should the board grant you another release versus giving you natural life in prison?
We are about to watch the parole revocation hearing of a Utah man who was originally convicted in 1989 of doing the worst to 2 young boys. He was then released in 2004 and immediately convicted again of possessing CP. Now out on release, he is being charged again with having illicit content. He was accused of this just a month before this hearing, and they are going to decide whether or not to even potentially give him a life sentence, resentence him to life. I'll unpack it with the details, including an old newspaper article from the original sentencing date at the end.
Good morning. This is the time and place set for a parole violation hearing for Kevin Lund, offender number 50773. Is that you, sir?
Yes, that is me.
Thank you. My name is Melissa Stapley. I'm a hearing officer with the Board of Pardons and Parole, and I'll be conducting your hearing today. I'm going to be taking testimony from you and Agent Chappell, but before we start, I do need to swear you both in. Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I swear, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sir, have you had a chance to meet with your attorney, Ms. Conyers?
Yes, I have.
Okay, did you receive at least 7 days written notification of this hearing and a copy of your blue packet?
Yes, I have.
Okay, just so you know, everything in that blue packet is a copy of what we're using for this hearing. You currently have 2 allegations. Before we start with that, I am going to note that there is a federal detainer in place as well. Of those 2 allegations, Ms. Conyers, is he willing to waive formal reading of the allegations?
Yes, he is willing to waive formal reading of the allegations, and he will admit both of them.
Okay, sir, based off of your admissions to the allegations, I am going to recommend that the board revoke your February 16th, 2021 parole date. Ms. Conyers, I'll turn the time over to you.
Just a little bit of information about the materials. He didn't know that it contained material exploiting children, and when he learned that, immediately deleted it. His intention was simply illegal pornography. Something else the board should know is, and likely does know, is that he is a federal detainer on him. He does want to return to Alpha Counseling for treatment. He has a good support group. He has a job at Great Western Supply. So if once he is released, he does have some stability and some things to look forward to. He's already made plans with his agent to work on issues he needs to work on, and his plans and how he can be successful on parole. So if given that opportunity, despite the federal detainer, it sounds like he knows what he needs to do to be successful. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. Agent Chappell, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, for the majority of his parole, Mr. Lund did show an understanding and a desire to be successful on parole. However, he came across stuff on the internet that he wasn't quite sure. He didn't make the right decision, we'll say it that way. And he failed to use some of the things that he had in place to help guide him when things like that came up. We talked about that very, very briefly the last time I talked with him. And I think that given the chance, he would make some solid corrections to address those things, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question. I was reading in the report that at the time it was written, federal probation said there were no pending charges. Is that still correct?
As
That is
to
still
my
correct.
knowledge, yeah, there's no pending charges.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Lund, I have some questions for you. Tell me how federal probation found this pornography on your phone when you didn't know it was child pornography.
There was no pornography on my phone. I had it, I looked at it on my computer.
Okay. So on your computer, how did they come across this pornography?
My computer was monitored.
Okay. And does your parole agreement allow you to look at pornography?
No, it did not.
Okay, so why were you looking at pornography?
Well, it was a selfish, entitled decision. The first time I viewed it, it was a kind of, well, an accidental click on, I was looking for movies on a particular site that had old movies. And there was a blank thumbnail. I clicked on it and there was pornography. That was the first time. After that, I deliberately searched for the two that I clicked on and downloaded. And then when I saw them, that they were highly inappropriate, I deleted them.
Okay. So I did spend a lot of time going through your file because you've been with us for quite a few years. In the report from APP, it says that you did complete SOTP, you passed 2 polygraphs this parole, yet here you are. So APP stated that you had the tools, but you chose not to use them. So
That
by
is
not
correct.
by not using those, you were looking at pornography. Whether or not it was child pornography, the board's not going to know. So why should the board grant you another release versus giving you natural life in prison?
I wish to be careful with my answer because I do not wish to minimize the bad choices I've made. I wish to take full responsibility for what I have done. But when I get out, I have a great support group now. I have reconnected with family members. You know, after the death of my father this last Easter, I connected with family members I had not had before, so I have a stronger support group than I have had before. I believe I still have a job at Great Western. I've been doing well with my support group, my therapeutic group, and my therapist. I believe that this time, and Agent Chappell has suggested to me that when we get back together, that we will work on the issues that my failings, my bad choices, my selfish choices, that we would work on those together to prevent a reoccurrence of my looking at or seeking for sexually explicit images. I believe that with the group I now have, admitting my guilt, admitting this responsibility for what I have done and accepting the consequences, that I can recommit to all of those people that I am working with, family, friends, therapeutic community, and both my parole officers. I believe I can be successful.
Okay. So during this parole, when you began looking at the pornography, why didn't you reach out to APNP or your therapist?
I was hesitant to admit my weaknesses and failings because there were so many good people who had faith in what I was doing. I did destroy that faith. I did create a lot of damage between me and the people I've been working with. I have. But I was afraid to admit my failings and weaknesses. I tried to approach it with my one-on-one therapist at one session, but I hinted around at the topic. And, but I lacked the courage. I wanted to believe I was doing better than I was doing, and I wanted to portray that image to others, which I see as false pride and foolishness. So I didn't actually come out and admit what had been going on. My fears, my failing, my arrogance.
So if you are released and this situation presents itself again, what would you do?
Cry for help. Beg for help. Before I acted on it, if it consumed me or began to obsess me in any way, I would immediately report it to family, friends, therapists, therapeutic group, and to Agent Chappell and Agent Dreger. I would reach out immediately instead of trying to hide my failings.
Okay. So I am going to note again that federal detainers in place. I'm also going to point out to the board in my report that at some point over the years, I think it was really recently, the federal courts did mention that they consider you a sexual predator. And then this happened in regards to this violation. And you did state that you have a job at Western, correct?
It's
If you
called
are released.
a Great Western Supply, yes. A
Okay.
friend of mine actually owns the company.
And what do you do there?
I worked in the warehouse, pulling orders, packaging them up, and loading trucks.
Okay. And where do you plan to live?
Well, I'm going to have to find a place similar to In-Town Suites where I was before. Not many apartment complexes will take me because I'm a registered offender. But there are other long-term hotels or motels that I can find. I have family and friends who will start looking for me as soon as they are aware of the date I will be released.
Okay. And then if you are released and the feds don't offer it, would you find releasing to a halfway house for stabilization, would that be helpful?
I do not think so. I have, with my father's passing, I did inherit some money. I have about $50,000 in the bank at this time. I have family and friends that will help me find a place to live. I have a paid-for vehicle already established. Going in and out of a halfway house is sometimes difficult and clumsy in order to reconnect with family, friends, a job, and so forth. I have been in halfway houses before.
Okay.
But whatever is required of me, I will do.
Okay. Now, I will note that you did pay off all your restitution. And at some point, on the federal side, you weren't allowed to have access to the internet, until March. And then it seems like between March of 24 and August is when, these troubles occurred. So, if the board ordered no internet as a special condition of parole, is that something you'd be willing to abide by?
Well, yes, if I may explain, I will need some type of internet access, not at my home,
Mhm.
but some type to do my banking, my social security, and other things that are all set up through an internet system. In the past, before I had internet access, I went to, oh, uh, I forget the name of it. It's down on Redwood Road. It's a job, kind of a job search
Uh-huh,
place where it's in open view.
right.
Or I was also allowed to use the internet at my work at Great Western Supply because it's out in open view. I would like limited internet access so that I can manage my my financial and retirement and other situations. But no, I do not need internet access at my home.
How about phone?
My phone is a GAB phone. It is wireless, but it does not have any internet access.
Okay. All right. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take the recommendation from your attorney and also the recommendation from AP&P, submit it to the board. Normally I don't say in my hearings what my recommendation would be because it would confuse inmates. If I were to recommend 6 months and the board decides to release after 9, then there's that confusion because the inmate was planning on being out in 6 months when the board decided something else. Ultimately,
Correct.
the decision is up to the board. However, I am going to be honest, at just going over everything and in reading the parole violation report, I am going to lean towards recommending natural life. But again, that is up to the board to decide. In the next 7 to 10 days, you will find out from the board their decision. It'll come to you in inmate mail. And at that time, you'll find out if you do get a release, when that would be, special conditions of parole, if they decided to do something else. But that's kind of where I am at right now. So if you don't have any questions, we'll conclude the hearing and I wish you luck.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Have a good day. Let's conclude this hearing. Thanks, Agent
Thank you.
Chappell.
Yep.
Now that's pretty intense when an examiner's looking at you and saying, you know what, but I'll tell you, I'm going to recommend that you get life. And I'll share with you what they decided. They didn't decide to give life. They just decided to add on 100 years to the sentence. But before we get excited about this, because frankly, this person has shown that the only place he belongs is behind bars. Let's be real. It's just a gimmick. The sentencing in Utah is a gimmick because although they added on 100 years to an already 100-year sentence, he has a rehearing date to 2025. He has a rehearing date in a year. So come on, it's a gimmick. So when she looks at him and says, I'm going to recommend natural life, everyone in the room, it's not like, whoa. No, it's more like, okay, here you go, bad boy. And you get a rehearing date. Now, Utah sentencing the guidelines are gimmicks. Now let's go through this article that Sir Richard found, and I don't really quite understand. Remember, this is written in the 80s. It's a sentencing judge for the initial crime. Mom's letter cuts molester's sentence. I'm trying to understand here if this is the child molester's mother or if this are the victim's mother. But let's go read it. Convicted child molester Kevin Miller Lund's recommended prison sentence has been reduced by a judge in part because of a letter from Lund's mother. Yes, so it is his mother. So the judge reduces his sentence because his mother writes a letter. An officer in Society League Against Molesters. So his mother is an officer in Society League Against Molesters. Your family has saved you 5 years in prison, Second District Judge Stanton M. Taylor told Lund prior to sentencing. The state parole department has recommended Lund be given 15 years to life in prison, but Taylor instead imposed a term of 10 years to life during a Monday hearing. Lund, 34 years old, pled guilty January to 2 counts of sodomy on a child and 1 charge of forcible SA of a child. The incident occurred in 1987 and involved a 12-year-old boy and a teenage boy. Lund is the son of Catherine Lund, a volunteer in SLAM, which has advocated harsh punishments for children, for child sexual abusers. Isn't that ironic? I mean, what is going on here? The irony of it. So one might assume, okay, there must have been something in her life but now her son does it and writes a letter to the judge to get less time. How is that even possible? I don't get it. Taylor said letters from Lund's family and a defense attorney's argument persuaded him to sentence Lund to 10 years to life on sodomy charges and 1 to 15 years to be served concurrently on the forcible SA. It was a touching letter, Taylor said Tuesday. He would not say specifically what was in the letter, except that it went into Lund's childhood and showed some mitigating factors the judge considered when passing the sentence. Defense attorney Martin Gravis argued that Lund cooperated fully with police after his arrest. Police raided Lund's home in December, and they said they found numerous obscene videotapes. He just loves those videotapes, movies, and photographs, including videos of one of his victims. Taylor said a letter would be sent to Utah State Prison instructing officers there to be aware of Lund's security situation in light of his mother's past activities with SLAM. They're like, be careful, guards, must protect him because his mother was an advocate to give harsher sentences. But when it's her son, she writes a letter to the judge to give a lighter sentence. And then the judge reduces 5 years, which I guess was just some type of token gesture because it's like 10 years to life or 15 years to life. The bottom line is he didn't get out after 10 years. He got out after, let's see. Sir Richard provided all the notes. It's a little confusing for me in the way that Utah does it. But this part, so he gets out. Well, this part's easy. Sir Richard has it in here. So again, he's convicted in 2/6/1989, 2 counts of sodomy. He's released 2/5/2004. So he ends up serving 15. I guess he serves 15 years. So the 10-year, that 5-year leeway didn't help him at all. He serves 15 years. And as soon as he gets out, it's got to be immediately because he's convicted 11/14/04 of CP. He gets locked back up. He gets released. I believe he gets released in 12/27/2022, I don't know what the federal detainer is about. Maybe once they got that CP, because it's, they're like, no, we're gonna go get you there. Sir Richard has all of his parole record accounts. It goes from 2005 up, where he gets to keep having these parole hearings. No, it actually shows parole granted in 10/30/2013, contingent upon Mr. Lund being federally and civilly committed to a federal institution. So if he's paroled there, then he goes to the federal institution, but then he's revoked. I don't know. It's confusing for me. I'm going to go through basically 5 pages of his records to try to figure it out. But bottom line is, he got out, then he got rearrested. Now he's given an extra 100 years to his sentence, and he will have parole next year, and we'll see. But I mean, the bottom line is, this is someone who can't control themselves, and you can't take the risk. He goes onto his computer, he's looking at content. The parole board said we won't know what it is, but I'm guessing they're just not investing the resources into certifying what it was. Everyone in the room knows what it was. And, this is someone who's clearly willing to take a risk, a very dumb risk, to go back to prison just to look at the content. I think it's safe to assume that if he had the opportunity, he'd be more than happy to have that moment for himself and go back to prison, because he's used to prison. Prison's not so bad. So when you take those facts into account, I think you just got to say, yeah, you don't risk another child getting harmed. You just have to expire in prison. And with that, I'll let you go.
So I did spend a lot of time going through your file because you've been with us for quite a few years. In the report from APP, it says that you did complete SOTP, you passed 2 polygraphs this parole, yet here you are. So APP stated that you had the tools, but you chose not to use them. So
That
by
is
not
correct.
by not using those, you were looking at pornography. Whether or not it was child pornography, the board's not going to know. So why should the board grant you another release versus giving you natural life in prison?